it's Roz with a Tag for Tag Tuesday, and I have to thank Steve Donoghue for tagging me in this. I will check who initiated this tag and stick it in there, but I think it's one that's been around quite a long time, so it's almost like the originator is almost lost in the distance of time, and it's the Mid Year Freakout book tag. And it's one of those tags which is like asking you to kind of look back and look forward, and do a bit of summing up. So yeah, perfect for June and mid-year. And I'm doing it on the day of the solstice, or the day after the solstice actually, because although it'll be Tuesday when I put it up, but I think it's one of those years where the solstice is, it can be on either the 20th or the 21st. Anyway, there are 13 questions. So, now, first question is your best book so far this year. Now, isn't it just completely impossible to make those kind of choices? In fact, isn't it ridiculous and kind of reductive and daft? However, I will do my best, because it's fun to be challenged to do that. So, my best book of 2020 so far is Agua Viva by Clarice Lispector. I know I'm going on about her a lot at the moment, but she's like just blowing me away at the moment. But that's an old book, and it kind of feels slightly in the spirit of this tag to try and find kind of contemporary things rather than just sort of classics or modern classics. So, and funnily enough, one of my contenders for best book of the year of kind of new books, kind of relatively new releases, is the one that Steve chose, which was a huge surprise to me. And it's The Actress by Anne Enright. And it's not a perfect book, but you know books that you read them and they kind of stay with you, and you find yourself kind of thinking back over them in your head, and did you understand them? Did you get everything out of them? And should you be taking it as literally as perhaps you did when you read it? Yeah, it's one of those books. So yeah, I'm up for that too. Although another contender would be Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, which I enjoyed a lot. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and my favourite non-fiction was of the year so far was The History of the Bible, The Book and Its Faiths by John Barton, which was something that I only read because of Maybe Midrash and actually found completely fascinating. If I ever make my Maybe Midrash video, I'll say more about it. Best sequel so far this year. Well, my best sequel so far this year is Hilary Mantel, The Mirror and the Light, which I was enormously excited about, and Jason of Old Blues Chapter and Verse got us to reread Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Body, so we'd be hot to trot for this sequel. Having said that, it's my favourite sequel that I've read this year. It's actually my only sequel I've read this year. Well, apart from Bring Up the Bodies that I reread as part of Cromwellathon. So it's a bit like when I tell my son that he's my favourite son and I only have one son. Yeah. New release that I've not read yet but want to. Oh, now there are loads. I think top of my list of would be two books that actually possibly came. Well, they're kind of new translations. They may have actually come out in 2019. They've only kind of come into my consciousness in 2020. One is The Greengage Tree by The Enlightenment of the Greengage Tree by Iranian author Shofookeh Azar, and I really fancy that. Sounds like a real Roz book, kind of covering a period of sort of history and through the lives of a family. Yeah, fancy that one. And another one is Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor, which I've just like some people that I admire written about it so positively. Like John McGregor, he's one of my favourite authors. He said it was a superb book, so I'm interested to read that. And yeah, both books in translation, because that's kind of one of my particular enthusiasms, I suppose. Most anticipated release of the second half of the year. Okay, well, one would be A Burning by, now let's get this name right, Megda Majumdar. Again, sounds like a real Roz book. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one a lot. It's a debut novel, so no idea what it will actually turn out to be like, but it's always really interesting to find an exciting new author, isn't it? So that's that one. But probably the one that I'm absolutely looking forward to most is Summer by Ali Smith, and that's a kind of a completist thing. It's like I've read the other three, you know, and so we finally get the fourth season and to complete the set, and so yeah, even if it's not brilliant, I still really, really, really want to read it, and I'm really, really anticipating it. And I've discovered, because we're now starting to get, you know, little blurbs about what it's going to be, is that it's set in Brighton, which is my hometown where I live, which is an added attraction. I just admire the attempt she's making to write something like really contemporary, and so I know that this is going to have, you know, COVID-19 and so on in it, and yeah, I think that's yeah, it could be my first COVID-19 book that I read. I've read others that are kind of about previous plagues and pandemics, inspired by the experience of being in COVID-19, but the first one that is actually the writer's been inspired by that. So, looking forward to that. Also, if she gets Brighton wrong, I'll get to have a good moan about it. Then, your biggest disappointment of the year so far? Oh, well, there's probably... I do try to pick my books really carefully, so I don't often have a disappointment. I've had about 3 real disappointments this year, I would say. I've talked about this before, you know, about how I think I've got sort of 2,000 or 3,000 books left to read in my lifetime, so I really try to avoid reading ones that I think are not going to be worthwhile. But I read Here We Are by Graham Swift, and I felt let down by that. It wasn't a bad book, he's a really good writer, but it just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Yeah, so that was my biggest disappointment. Biggest surprise, I think I might choose Laurus by Eugene Vodolazkin, because I think I was surprised that I could enjoy a book so much that is about a medieval Russian holy man. Yeah. Yes. Honestly, really, it was great. Loved it. Strongly recommend it, in fact. Yeah, that was my biggest surprise. Favourite new author, either debut author or new to me. My favourite new to me, not debut, non-fiction and poetry author actually is Kathleen Jamie. I read a book of her poetry, and then I read Surfacing, which is a book of her non-fiction kind of nature come travel writing. Yeah, she's a new favourite for sure. But my other new favourite was a book that I read for the Read German Book Project that Britta and Mel are inviting us to take part in, and that was Till by Daniel Kelman. And you know when you read a book by someone you've never read before and think, I must find some previous books this person has read and jolly well read them, and I picked that because it was a new release, so yeah, because I'm trying to think of the odd new releases as I do this. Newest fictional crush. Now, Steve, very sweetly in his version of this tag, had a good moan about this as a prompt, because he says, you know, us grown-ups, we don't really have fictional crushes, do we? Yeah, no, it's true, we don't. But I'm going to try and pick one, and I'm actually going to pick Looty from the Street by Anne Petry. Just, it's not crush, but something about her spirit with which she keeps going and keeps trying and tries to remain optimistic despite the circumstances around her, that was quite made me really warm to her as a character. Mind you, the next prompt, number 9, is your newest favourite character, so that's a bit similar if I interpret it like that. My newest favourite character though is Sir Gawain of Gawain and the Green Knight. I read Simon Armitage's version of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I think he's my newest favourite character, because isn't it great when you can read about some character that was written in the 14th century and really enjoy them as a person. And it also allows me to tell you a silly story, which is I talked about Sir Gawain in a video, and Brian commented on what I said and warmly agreed with me that the character of Sir Gawain is a real prick. Now, what I actually said was a real prick, as in priggish, but I just it amused me no end that's how Brian heard it. And actually, yeah, he's a prick as well as being a prig. He's just a dreadful character, but that's why I enjoy him so much. So that's my new favourite character. Book that made me cry. Now, I don't cry a lot with books, really. I mean, you don't, do you, when you're I don't know, mature reader? I don't know, maybe you do, maybe I'm just a bit callous, I don't know. If I'm going to cry, it's most likely going to be poetry that sets me off. The last real literal kind of tears that I had, I think, reading a book was in 2019, and that was reading Surge by J. Barnard, and a poem about a parent kind of talking about his dead child that was burnt in the New Cross fire. I think there's a thing, if something's going to bring me kind of 2 tears in a book, it's very often going to be because it hits hits a tender spot in me to do with being a parent. I think the 2 books that come in 2020 that have come closest to making me cry, have moved me in that kind of way, would be Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, because she's writing about the loss of a child, and The Lost Children Archive by Valeria Luiselli. Some of the bits about the Central American children on the train coming through Mexico and trying to get into America, and then that was a very, very moving book, but that doesn't literally make me cry. Now a book that made me happy. Lots of books make me happy, but the one that I read most recently that made me most happy was Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. And the last time that I read Cold Comfort Farm, I was 15, okay, I think, roughly, and I loved it then, and it sort of was there in the back of my mind, but I'd kind of half forgotten it. And Steve, my husband, picked it up and read it, because I must have told him, I can't believe you haven't read Cold Comfort Farm, at some point, so he did. And he enjoyed it so much that I forgot the things that I was meant to be reading for on my TBR list, and thought, damn it, I'm going to reread Cold Comfort Farm. And it was just as wonderfully funny and warm-hearted and delightful and brilliant as the first time I read it. So that made me happy. Look, you can see, big smile. The most beautiful book you've acquired or been given this year. Now, this is a funny one in a pandemic year, isn't it? In that most of the books that I'm getting at the moment are ebooks, which is how it is. But just before the start of lockdown, the last time that I went to a supermarket together with Steve, before we had to go, just one of us with masks, all the stuff, there was a little charity bookstall at the supermarket, and I picked up this book, The Guest Cat. I got that. I've got a glare problem, haven't I? By Takashi Hiraide. Oh, I should have looked up pronouncing that right, shouldn't I? And I picked it up because it was such a beautiful cover. It's like it's a beautiful Japanese sort of pen and ink drawing cat, little on it. It's just a thing, yeah. And it's got that kind of nice feeling of a book. Like it's a paperback, but it's made with care and it feels lovely. Yeah. So that could be the most beautiful one. Then, final prompt, books you need to read by the end of the year. Well, do you ever need to read a book? I mean, I want to read loads and loads and loads of books. I've always got a long list of what I want to read next. I guess one thing that I do feel like I need to read is these two. And that's because I just read 5th season. And that's by N.K. Jemisin, and I don't read a lot of science fiction-y fantasy sort of stuff. This is high quality fantasy, and I need to read these because it is a trilogy, and it's one of those trilogies where the story is not complete at the end of book 1. So at the end of the 5th season, I was left hanging and needing to know more. So I hope the other 2 books kind of live up to my expectations. From what I've heard, the Obelisk Gate, like, second books in trilogy are often a bit of a wobble, a bit of like marking time, and then, there's the setup in book 1, and then you get the sort of plateau book in the middle, and then things come together in book 3. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those. So need to read those. I need to read, as part of my sort of ongoing project, to read a book by an author from every country in the world. And I try to read at least one a month. That means that I'm just gradually working through, over the years. I keep knocking off another 12 countries each year, and I've got 6 new countries lined up and ready to roll over the next 6 months. I'll tell you which. Paraguay. This is the book for Paraguay. It's slightly intimidating, this one. It's yes, it says it's Ida Supreme, one of the milestones of the Latin American novel, and it's kind of long and a bit chunky. But I'm looking forward to it. I could do with reading a milestone. It's good for the soul, isn't it? Here's my one from Benin. Now, that's a bit of a contrast because, I must tell you about this. This was kind of given to me for my birthday, and someone got hold of a second-hand copy because it's not easy to get hold of. And it's a signed copy by Rauf Mama, who wrote it. And look, it was signed, I don't know if you can read that, in 2005, for the teachers and staff of Bolton Centre. May your creative spirits take flight and soar to the uttermost bounds of your most glorious dreams, Rauf Mama. And what is a bit sad is that was only in 2005, and it's already wound up as like a second-hand book. I feel like maybe the Bolton Centre School Library Media Centre in Bolton, Connecticut, did not truly value this book. Particularly, interestingly, it's got its like classification code on the back here, and I don't know if you can read that, but they've actually classified it as Native American. What's going on there? Hopeless idiots. I don't know. Anyway, that's been it. I've got a book from Fiji and a book from Suriname lined up on the Kindle, and then I've got one from the Bahamas and one from St Vincent and the Grenadines. And those two, if I can, I might try and squeeze into June to be 2 books for Caribathon. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I manage it, but at least I'm sure I will read at least one of them. One of them's like a detective story, but set in St Vincent. That should be fun, shouldn't it? That shouldn't take too long to read. Should be light relief with any luck. So million other books that I need to read, obviously, but that will do. It's been fun. I'm not going to tag anyone specific, but if you're like halfway through the year and you'd like to do a little bit of reflection, then why not do this tag? I'm always pleased when Tilly does one of my tags, because that's gives us a chance to have yet another conversation about books. But yeah, have a go. Why not?